A quiet black student tutors. A struggling classmate. What the school principal does next will shock you. He never spoke unless spoken to. In a school of loud hallways and louder reputations, Elijah Cole was a whisper. He walked with the silence of someone used to being overlooked, carrying a second-hand backpack stitched carefully with his grandmother's initials. His eyes, dark like riverbed stones, never lingered on anyone's face too long. He was there, always there, but never part of the noise. Maplewood High was a place where reputations ran the halls faster than students did. The athletes reigned like royalty. The drama kids moved like hurricanes of emotion. And then there were the drifters, kids like Elijah, quiet, invisible, neither feared nor admired. He sat at the back of every class, answered every question right but without fanfare, and left before you could catch his name. That is, until Lila Hastings failed, her third algebra test. Lila wasn't the kind of student who failed things. She had golden hair that always looked like it had been combed by angels and a smile that made teachers pause. Her father, Mr. Hastings, was the district superintendent. Her future was paved in recommendations and privilege. But on the Tuesday, before winter break, Mrs. Porter, the math teacher, had called her to the front with a quiet sigh. "Lila, you need a tutor. This is serious now." The class buzzed with whispers. Lila stood still, her cheeks a mix of shame and defiance. Elijah didn't look up. He had already seen it coming. The numbers swimming in her eyes like broken stars, the pencil marks getting more desperate as the weeks went on. Mrs. Porter didn't ask the class for volunteers. She simply turned, almost unconsciously, toward the back row and said, "Elijah, would you mind?" His pencil stopped. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then slowly he nodded. And just like that, 2 worlds that never should have touched were about to crash into each other. They met in the library that Thursday after school. Lila sat across from him with arms folded, a wall, in every breath. "I don't need a babysitter," she said. "I'm not here to babysit," Elijah replied, eyes on the math sheet. "I'm here to help." The words were plain, without sarcasm or pity. He slid the paper between them like a peace offering. That first hour passed with more sighs than progress. But he didn't flinch, and the next week she came again. And again. By the 3rd session, something shifted. Lila stopped rolling her eyes. She started asking questions, real ones. And Elijah started looking up more often. There, silence wasn't so empty anymore. One afternoon, the sky outside the library turned a kind of bruised gray. A winter storm had started. Students were rushing out, laughter echoing through the corridors. But they stayed. "Elijah," she asked, tapping her pencil slowly, "why don't you talk to people?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the snow beyond the glass. "My mom used to say silence was a language too," he said softly. "Most people just never learned how to listen to it." She didn't know what to say to that. But that night, she told her mother over dinner that Elijah was actually really smart. The next week, she brought him hot cocoa in a thermos. "Don't tell anyone," she said, sliding it across the table. He smiled, barely, but it changed something in the air. From that point on, Elijah and Lila weren't just tutor and student. They were in some small way companions navigating the silent middle ground between their worlds. But not everyone liked it. Jason Turner, the star quarterback, had always had Lila's attention. Or so he thought. One afternoon he walked by the library and saw them, Lila laughing at something Elijah said. Elijah, the quiet kid. He told people Elijah was trying to impress her. He called him a charity case. He laughed a little too, loudly, when he passed him in the hall. Elijah didn't respond. He never did. But something inside Lila began to smolder. When Jason made a joke about Elijah in gym class, a cruel one, Lila stood up in front of everyone and said, "At least, Elijah knows how to be kind." The gym fell silent. Elijah heard about it later. He never brought it up. But that next tutoring session, he brought her a tiny notebook with a math quote on the cover. "You might like it," he said simply. 2 days later, Elijah didn't come to school. Then another. Then a week passed. Lila asked around. Nobody seemed to know, until she cornered Mrs. Porter, who hesitated and then said, "There was an incident." It turned out Jason and some of his friends had cornered Elijah outside of school. There had been shouting, a shove, a fall, no bruises, but the damage wasn't skin deep. Elijah had stopped coming not because of fear, but because he felt foolish. He thought he'd let his quietness slip. He thought maybe the world didn't want him stepping out of line. Lila didn't hesitate. She went straight to Principal Davies. "I want to report bullying." Davies blinked behind his glasses. "Do you have evidence?" She nodded. Her voice didn't shake. "I have his bruised notebook. I have his name, and I won't stay silent." It sparked something. Mrs. Porter spoke up. Then a janitor came forward. He had seen the boys corner Elijah that day, but was afraid to say anything. Slowly, voices joined. And one afternoon, just 2 weeks later, Principal Davies made a surprising announcement during assembly. "Elijah Cole," he said into the microphone. "Please come to the stage." Murmurs filled the gym. Elijah stood slowly, stunned as he made his way up. Lila was already there. "Maplewood is built on excellence," Principal Davies continued. "And that means not just athletic excellence or academic trophies, but excellence in humanity. Elijah Cole exemplifies what it means to quietly uplift others. His actions may have gone unnoticed by some, but they changed the life of a classmate and revealed the best of who we can be." Then, something unheard of happened. "Principal." Davies opened a folder and handed Elijah a certificate, but not for tutoring. It was a special commendation, a full scholarship offer to a private science academy that had seen his tutoring work through Mrs. Porter's recommendation. Elijah stood frozen. A single tear slid down his cheek. And then, quietly, almost like a whisper, the gym erupted in applause. Lila stood beside him, smiling through her own tears. The bullies were disciplined, yes, but the real story wasn't about punishment. It was about presence. About a quiet student who chose to help even when no one was watching. About a girl who learned that strength sometimes comes without noise. And about a school that, for once, chose to listen to silence. Months later, the library table still sat by the window, but now it held a plaque. In honor of those who teach without speaking loudly. Elijah's story was shared in local papers, not as a viral headline, but as a quiet revolution. He never became the loudest voice in the room. He didn't need to, because sometimes the most powerful change begins in silence and ends with everyone standing to listen. Call to action, YouTube ending. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs to remember that even the quietest among us can make the loudest impact.